Hi there. Welcome to our second episode of the Northern Triangle Mentor Network podcast. In our first episode, I had a great chat with Nikki Dibben from Invention Marketing, where we had a deep dive into the world of customer discovery and market research. You can check that episode out on our YouTube channel. This time around, we're exploring communication and how to tell your story in a way that potential customers, investors, and future team members can understand and be excited by. When we hold our innovation sprint events, we often find that some of the academics really struggled on how to communicate with their commercialization project in an easy to understand, but also captivating way. Sometimes they focus too much on the science. So today we've asked Rosa Schmidt, from the founder of DEFEM, to talk about her experience of helping deep tech businesses to clarify their positioning, shape compelling narratives, and build the emotional infrastructure that turns bold ideas into resilient brands, which I stole from Rosa's LinkedIn profile, which is why it sounds so amazing. Hi, Rosa. Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us and taking the time today. To start off with, just tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you get involved in.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as always, to see you and do this specific episode. I mean, a couple of words from my side. I've been in the deep tech and space tech industry for the past 5 years. And let's say around 1.5 years ago, I decided to extend my portfolio, found an agency that really is focusing on bringing complex products to life, because I can see that very much, especially with companies with engineering background or in general, like scientific-based companies, that it's difficult to, go out of technicalities and create a story that's compelling and make things commercially viable. And that's kind of where I'm, starting off and ending. It's also a passion of mine, because I love working with people who actually are really, really good at their job and they just need help to open some doors. And yeah, that's what my agency is about. It's a storytelling agency. And I'm happy to, again, be part of this podcast today.
Cool. Thank you. I guess to sort of kick off, and it kind of goes back to my point earlier about the innovation sprint. Like, we've got a team of brilliant academics. They've got some amazing research, and now they want to go and commercialize it and turn it into something real. But we still find that they really struggle to sort of tell their story, to communicate what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it. And so what are some of the things that they should be starting to talk about right at the beginning, in a way that, talking to someone who isn't a scientist, it could be a potential customer, it could be an investor, but how can they start to talk about their project in a way that will engage and enthuse people and get, sort of bring them along that journey?
Good point. I mean, like, I do feel a lot of academics in this case, they focus a lot on the product, and that's where the passion lies, of course. What I can always recommend as like the first thing to do is really think about your own story. Why are you doing a certain thing? Or like lots of these founders, I guess, have been in this field for a long time. They studied it, they did a PhD. So there's a long, trajectory, long journey, and like making this decision to spin out, found a company. So I think the first thing they should do is really write down the why. Why am I doing this? What is actually my place of existence? Like, what's the reason I'm doing things? Because in the end, yes, okay, you can obviously compel people with your product and tapping into a potential market opportunity, but you need to connect that also with emotion, and to ask yourself the question, okay, when I would be an investor, why would I trust you from all of the other people who maybe do similar products? And that kind of will, translate into your story and why you're doing what you're doing. What I can give you as an example is to think it from a journalist's perspective, because these guys will always be around you. You need them for media coverage, and most of them have no idea what you're doing. So if you don't know how to tell your story, maybe try to find, journalists in your network and try to tell them your story at different stages of the company and see if they understand it. I think that would be the easiest way for me to validate if what you do and why you're doing it actually makes sense. So that would be my advice, maybe as an example, so people understand how that actually looks like in practice. Maybe some of you remember the company BioNTech during COVID-19. And to be honest, BioNTech is obviously just another biotech startup, which does complex technology, and most people couldn't really understand what they're doing. But instead of, feeding scientific jargon, you can say, they really went in with, their story saying, hey, we are a small German company founded by two scientists, a husband and wife team, and they're children of, they have immigration background. And that was a story that journalists wanted to pick up on. And that kind of brought the ball rolling, brought everything into, perspective. And the product and the technology then was in perspective, but they had to start with something different rather than just the value of the product.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. I think there is that kind of that emotional connection that you want to make really early on. You want people to understand why you're different, what helps you stand out. And it's not always about the product. It's not always about the thing that you're doing that is making you stand out, because you might be in a very competitive landscape. And so it is that it's those nuances that you can pull out to sort of say, well, okay, well, why are you different? Why should we listen to you as opposed to anybody else in the market? So I think, no, I really like that idea of pulling out some of those little stories that got to where you are now. Like, why? Yeah, what was that thing? What was that kind of spark moment that you had that made you sort of think, well, no, we're going to go and explore this. We're going to go and do this differently. And I think, it's that why is really important. And I think, as you said, a lot of academics will focus in on the how. They want to tell they want to give you the mechanics. They want to tell you all the nuts and bolts that are in there, and why, what that means, and all of the research papers that got to where they are now. So when we often see with academics that they really get focused in on the how, on the real sort of technical element of it, the nuts and bolts of how this piece of kit works, and how the research has proven that it works, and all of these things. But actually, when they're talking to the market, surely it is really crucial to talk about the why. What is the impact and on what this is going to do? And I'd just be interested to get your thoughts on, how important is it for them to start talking about the why as early as possible? We mentioned about the little nuances of how you've got here, but also, what does this mean for the market? What does this mean for the problems that you're solving? So just wondered if you'd got any examples or thoughts around why it's so crucial to make that step to the why.
It's actually quite simple, because without the why, you don't know how to improve the how. So to make it clear, what I mean is, you have to, from the very beginning, or you should not have to. I mean, I don't want to command anybody what to do, but I do think you have to stay close to the audience you're talking to. If this is an investor, if this is a potential client, if this is someone you conduct a pilot study with, it's important to keep these people in the loop and establish a feedback loop from the very beginning with specific questions that double check if their pain points are solved. Most important thing, overall problem, understanding that, then try to be specific per industry or vertical in your pain points, and then try to think about your product and how it will fit into all of that, and not the other way around, because the problems will always change. Your product needs to come afterwards. I think that's what I would say. And that also is, I think, just a way of dealing with it, and then taking it step by step. And that's also the way you can grow, because again, when we talk about the why and we talk about who can people trust, this is the way of getting these proof points out there. If you go to an investor and they ask, okay, how did this pilot study go along? Then you can always refer to, hey, we were in close contact with these people. That's what they said. That's what we try to change. You can showcase the process, how you communicate with a client, which in the world we're living in becomes more and more valuable than just mere numbers.
Yeah, I think, and again, it kind of touches on what I spoke about with Nikki in the previous podcast, really, is around that market discovery and the customer research that you're doing, the market research, I think it's really important to have those conversations, and that's probably where you start to learn the
Mhm.
way that you talk about your commercialization idea and your and the why as well as the how. And it is a really important part to part of the process of understanding where you are going to fit in the market, how you're going to solve those pain points. So I think, yeah, this is having that clear message of the why from the beginning will help you sort of when you're having those first interactions, because you're breaking it down in a way that you can just start to have an easy conversation with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real important part of the journey, and learning is, say, absorbing that feedback, and it helps you then, whether you need to iterate, whether you need to tweak things slightly, and then you go again and you sort of, yes, you've changed your message slightly again, but you've not had to kind of rip it up and start again kind of thing,
Mhm.
because you've
Mhm.
started this process really, really early on. Um,
Absolutely.
I think one of the other things as well that I've always been really keen to look at within businesses, and it's linked to the why, is kind of around the the, the, the sort of culture within an early stage sort of startup, that focusing in on that why. What is it that you're looking to achieve? What is your purpose? You know, I think it's not just about the tech or whatever it is, but what are the things that are driving you? And like, how does that help sort of build that story for you as well?
Mhm.
It's almost taking it into a very personal sort of focus on this. So yeah, how important is that within that storytelling journey?
I mean, that's absolutely important. I mean, like, how can I say that? It sounds very radical, but I know like a lots of people think, oh, you have to separate business from your emotional and personal life, which to a degree, of course, is true because it cannot be all in one. But I do think in order to make a story from a good story to a great story, it's important to bring in this emotional connection that you maybe are hesitant to bring in because potentially that seems like a weakness or not, but that would be like, differentiating from a very like average story that everybody tells because you look at data and you try to create only lookalikes to something that's, really, really cool. And you can also see that from different angles. It's not only you as a founder and the pressure is only on you, but your team, like what makes them them. I think all of them have some kind of representation, which then can also linger down into case studies, for example. So really understanding the essence, talking to people internally, that needs to spread to the outside world as well, and vice versa. You see, I'm talking about this feedback loop constantly. I mean, that's something that I'd say just to keep in mind. No, that's also quite theoretical, but I just want to express, that it's so essential to keep this ball rolling quite literally and to not just stop when you said, oh, okay, I wrote down 2 or 3 pages of my story and that's it. That's just the beginning of something hopefully beautiful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And I think again, when I've worked with businesses in the past, I think where you have that culture, where you have that mission sort of built in really early on, I think it resonates outwards. It helps build trust, I think, as well. I think, I think
Absolutely.
it's a really important part of this, is because, yeah, you're building trust. People need to believe you when you're sort of saying that this product is going to change the world. It's going to be revolutionary in these different areas.
Mhm.
And yes, you can show the science behind it, but there's also that trust of, well, why you and your team, but
Exactly.
I think also, when you're recruiting, when you're bringing people into the business, they're going to look in and they're going to see that, it's a competitive landscape when you're recruiting people. And I think people want to go and work in a place where there is a strong sense of culture, where there is a real mission as well.
Absolutely. Maybe to add to this, because that just popped into my mind as well. I mean, like when we put that into practice, because I'm a fan of making practical examples, look at a lot of deep tech ventures who have a long time until actually their product comes to life. They have to invest in infrastructure. They have a long time to actually bridge the time until their product is going to be valuable for a market. So I've seen lots of companies that I work with struggle to find a good balance. How can we keep investors at bay? How can they, trust us for such a long period of time without seeing any outcome? And that's, again, something that kind of needs to be anchored within the team. Like thinking about, SpaceX, for example, their mission to Mars. I mean, like, how long will this take until they finally get there? But all of these, most of these team members, I guess, I don't know, I cannot look into them, but they have this, this pride of being part of a greater thing. They change the world, and I think this kind of translates also in the way SpaceX presents itself and hold itself accountable, more or less. Yeah. So please don't take me on these words, but you hope you understand what I'm trying to get at. It's really about influencing people in the right and positive way, so they feel like they're enabling something individually, and that kind of carries you hopefully for this period of time until you can measure, show, and prove your product as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when you have got sort of such long development cycles, particularly within deep tech, we're not talking about a SaaS product that's going to get launched in 6 weeks, and you're not going to build it by using like Chat GPT or something like that. You're going to be, there's a long sort of lead-in time on this. And I think I agree with you. I think if you've got that culture and you've got that mission from a very early stage, people will trust you. They will go along with you on that journey. And as you say, like, particularly from an investment perspective, if you're trying to bring along people who aren't necessarily deep tech investors, it's a whole new world for them. It's, to understand like a product life cycle kind of thing. So being able to talk to them, being able to build that trust, I think is crucial, really. I think, but it does resonate from that really early sort of question you're asking yourself of like, well, why are we doing this? What does it mean to us? Why is this kind of in my heart type thing?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And if I can maybe say something else to that, maybe that hits home for a lot of our listeners today. It's also a fundamental thing. Are you up for being a founder? Are you up for doing this journey? Because it's going to be tough. You will make a lot of mistakes. Are you ready for rejection? I mean, these are all very personal topics you have to be sure about, or at least take the leap and say, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And I do think that's important for you to always check in, because if you're not there and you have lots of responsibility, you have a team you have to, also pay salaries for, you have to satisfy investors, then you need to be up for the job, honestly. And I think lots of people, they underestimate themselves, and some of them overestimate themselves. So it's about the balance, right? Yeah, my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And I think when we did the last event over in Manchester, I think we had one of the spin out founders, Richard Unwin, talking about his journey as a spin out founder. And he was driven by his passion of getting their sort of therapeutic out of the university. They knew the impact it would have on the world. It would make a fundamental shift in how this particular illness was being treated. But he also recognized he wasn't going to be the CEO at the very end. He wanted to stay in academia, but it was his passion, it was his drive that got the idea out of the university to spin it out. And the rest of the team bought into that, and clearly that worked and resonated when he was talking to investors, and ultimately when he was looking at bringing that C-suite team into his spin outs. Having it's not just always about the staff that might be below you within your organization, not like in a startup, it's a very linear sort of structure in terms of hierarchy and things like that. But if you're trying to convince like top level executives to come in and launch and grow your business, again, I think that story is very compelling. It's hugely compelling as part of that, to make sure you bring the right people in who also believe in your own vision. If you don't have that vision when you're talking to these executives,
exactly,
what is it to them?
Exactly that.
Um, and I think like one of the things as well, and whenever we talk about marketing or whatever it might be, or particularly, PR and public relations and things, people
Mm-hmm.
go, we don't have the money. We're an early stage startup. There's no way we can afford to do any of this. It's a nice idea to do marketing, but we won't, we can't afford a marketing manager or whatever it is. But I found that, again, talking about that message and the clarity of message, you can do this on a really kind of like shoestring level in terms of telling your story and
Absolutely.
amplifying your story.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were working with a deep tech company and they're sort of saying, yeah, but we can't afford to do billboard adverts or something like that, what are you saying? Well, actually, let's use these channels to
Mm-hmm.
start telling our story, to start building up our profile. What's the go-to sort of channel that you're using when you're talking to these early stage businesses?
I mean, rest assured, there is definitely you can make marketing without any budget. That's absolutely possible. It depends how you view it. If you see it as something where you have to put an advertisement budget away and like put some campaigns on Google, then of course you have to spend thousands of pounds. But to come back to your question, I will always recommend LinkedIn or SEO, or both together. So these are things where you can easily start building your community, like, just posting about what we just talked about, the story, your process, maybe you can show some behind the scenes, what you're currently working on, like build momentum in some way. So momentum takes 1 or 2 years to build, but you need to start somewhere. You cannot expect the post to go viral if you didn't try and test certain things. So I would definitely say these two things. SEO, just to rank also on Google and to kind of make your website, just improve your website and your online presence. I think that's important, not only to get new employees, but also when investors check your website, how does it look like? Do they have the first right impression? I think these are very powerful tools for little to no budget. You just need time and a little bit of effort, hopefully, and to make that work. This is what I would recommend. And yeah, with this kind of community, the people who engage with your posts the most, you could also try to interview them because they could be early adopters of your technology, or they might be interested otherwise. So there's only a win-win situation with these two channels. And especially in B2B tech, I do think this is the right way to do it. Of course, Instagram can also be a way, but I would say, depending obviously on the case, that's something that can come maybe later down the line when you kind of figured out how you want to creatively present your company as well. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I found that particularly building that community early on, I think having those people around you that support you and engage in your stories, I think it shows that you're building your credibility within your space, within your environment. I think also using, LinkedIn to me is no longer a recruitment tool. It's a B2B interface. It's a way that
Absolutely.
it's the easiest way to talk directly to your audience without needing to do this huge scattergun approach. It's kind of like connect with the people you need to be connecting with, and then you will talk to them. You will become visible. They will pick up your stories. And I
Mm-hmm.
think also, particularly in deep tech as well, one of the things that when you're starting to build that credibility and you're building up your profile, it's a very good way of kind of becoming a thought leader in your area, and I think, you mentioned it earlier around SpaceX. Yes, this is like a mission to Mars. This is things
Mm-hmm.
like 30, 40, 50 years away kind of thing. It's not an immediate thing now. But if you need an expert on space exploration, you're probably going to SpaceX and asking for a quote on them.
Exactly that.
It's that kind of thing where your product may not necessarily be out there in the marketplace yet, but you've got this area of expertise. You've got this domain expertise that you can talk about, and you can talk about with authority, and people will
Mm-hmm.
engage and interact with you. So again, if someone's doing that bit of research on you, like an investor or a potential customer, if you've got no profile, they're going to be like, well, who are these guys? But if they're seeing
Mm-hmm.
that having conversations and people are engaging with you, and you're being featured in like sort of podcasts or sort of conferences and things like that, people will start sort of build that trust with and sort of go, actually, yeah, these guys are serious.
Absolutely. And bringing in this event stuff, exactly that. I mean, I can imagine for lots of academics and also other people. I mean, I include myself in this whole statement I'm going to bring out is sometimes it can be a barrier or exhausting to think, oh, the way I network is only if I'm going to go to this event, I'm traveling there, and I don't know if I meet the right people. Yeah, this thing like this risk will always be there, but you have this alternative for LinkedIn. And good thing is you can connect both together. So when you go on events, you can automatically refer people to your LinkedIn page. We have an absolutely qualitative follower then and grow it, and vice versa. So it's just, again, think about it from a network perspective. Not only I have to do channel A and create 3-4 stories and that's it, but more, okay, how do these stories enable me to do different things? How can I create a journey for people to understand the whole brand experience and the story of my product and company? That's kind of where I'm getting at, basically.
Yeah. And I think, again, it goes back to that clarity of message and that kind of tone of voice that you're sort of setting early on is that I think one of the things that I found certainly over the last few years is that people seem to resonate more with a more personal tone of voice on LinkedIn, rather than it being kind of like that. It doesn't feel like it's staged. It doesn't feel like you're becoming overly technical. And I think, again, like certainly my experience and what I've seen is, yeah, people will resonate more. People will interact more with something that feels a bit more genuine and a bit more like from the heart, but again, it goes back to this thing of asking that personal question at the beginning, like, why are you doing this? What's driving you? What is the impact that you are wanting to create? And that it just kind of builds out, as you keep on, doing this. And yeah, you'll make mistakes. You'll follow the wrong people. You'll speak to the wrong people at exhibitions. But as you would with your product, you learn from that. You iterate. You change. You have a different approach. And
exactly. 100%.
And I guess one of the things that I picked up, I think, from a LinkedIn post that you did recently was that you said, if you want to be seen, don't get louder, get clearer. And I think that kind of back into what we've just been saying, like from a new spin out perspective, what's the most important like first step for a founder to take from their communication? Like, kind of, is it writing the mission statement? Is it having a one-liner that they can use in their pitch or in their website? Like, but how crucial is it that it's as clear and kind of, I guess, less technical as possible? What would be some of your sort of kind of hints and tips around that?
I mean, to be honest, it's very, I wouldn't say easy, because doing it is not easy, but the building blocks are easy. I'm thinking very much in asset boxes or blocks. So the first question I ask myself, it doesn't matter what you do, if it's writing a mission statement, if it's like a vision paper, like a North Star where you write everything down, or a press release or whatever it is. You start first with, when you scan through it, who is this for? So are we talking to partners, investors, customers? Be specific. The second thing is, what problem are we solving for them? Is it like not a technical feature, but like, a real world pain point? Like, are we solving that, or what exactly, how are we tackling it? And the third thing, why does it matter now? So why is it relevant now? Like, these things need to be clear, like urgency, relevance, timing. And from that kind of construct, you can create anything, basically. You can create a good press release. You can create a good landing page. So a whole story that goes through, until the end, when you then have a call to action, you bring people to submit a website form, or you can create your key messages, So a key message is how you want the customer or the investor to remember you. What is it you really change? And I think that's how I would try to go for every communication piece that I have, or basically any kind of sales material. And then you should actually be bulletproof and good to go. And of course, like, have this feedback loop with others. Do they see it the same way? Is it only you? And if you align on all of that, you can be as efficient as possible, honestly, because you avoid having endless discussions with your teammates on what's good, what's bad, because you have this framework and people understand what you're talking about. So that's what I would say. These three things, keep them in mind, and you should be actually good to go.
No, that's brilliant. I absolutely agree with you. I think that there's a really important aspect in this as well. It is that feedback loop. Is it, as you test these ideas out, as you kind of talk to those different audiences, you're always looking for a reaction. You're looking for them to either, if you think you've got that kind of mission statement, whatever piece sort of bottomed out, but then you start getting lots more questions and people are looking for more clarity, then you're sort of thinking,
Yeah.
we've not got it right. It's taking on that feedback and absorbing it and reacting and iterating as well. I think again, this isn't. There won't be a final piece. You will always change it. You will always evolve it. You just make slight little tweaks and in the way you describe what you're doing and the reason why, whatever it is, just because you're trying to understand what resonates with that particular audience. And
absolutely.
I think that's really important. And I love those three sort of takeaways. I think there's a lot that hopefully our academics will be able to sort of listen in and absorb and take away with them. And at the end of the day, as it isn't rocket science, but if you don't know it, it just seems quite alien.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping what we've talked about today will hopefully give some kind of assurance and some kind of build some confidence with the the academics to sort of go, as we can do this, because at the end of the day, it's why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly that. It's already there. It's not like you have to think you think you need to think so much. It's not like that. You have the story already. You just have to believe that you could tell it. Just not scream it out into the world. Be clear about what you say, as I said in my quote. And I'm sure you guys can master it. So thank you, Ken, for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
No, thank you, Rosa. I think it's been really good to chat to you and sort of just get those initial thoughts. This is the beginning of a journey for the people that we're working with, and that's why Mentor Network exists, is to give that guidance, to help shape these academics as they are taking a big step going into the commercial world, and hopefully the Mentor Network is there to guide and support and hold hands, have a shoulder to cry on, whatever it might be, to help them on their journey. But no, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for those who've been watching and listening to us. We will be back hopefully in the next sort of month or so with another podcast subject. But certainly, keep on following us on our YouTube channel and on LinkedIn. And we'll see you for the next episode. Thank you.